I see one of the comments is Kim Kardashian is now a moon hoax supporting lady. And my comment back was astounding.
Yeah, nice one. Yes, NASA had to correct her wrong thought process, didn't they? They're obviously monitoring all the relevant people commenting on NASA's ability to land humans on the moon. They say they did it. Where is the evidence? Come on, guys. Get real about this.
NASA hits back at reality star moon hoax.
There you go.
I don't know what reality is anymore if that's a reality show.
Oh, reality's landing on the moon.
Well, I thought Sci-Man-Dan was a reality channel until he made that video on us again.
Yeah, I thought that was a ridiculous. It was actually an admission that he didn't know what he was talking about. He was just quoting NASA. That's all he ever does. If NASA says it's true, then it must be true, and these idiots are complete frauds. That's his approach. But he hasn't taken the trouble to examine the evidence that NASA put forward. He keeps going on about, well, NASA said radiation wasn't a problem. They just went through it very fast. And you believed it. What sort of person is this that believes what never a straight answer tells you? It's sad.
Didn't he say that the radiation protection has been proven? Well,
Yes,
then what are all those documents about on the radiation and the problems that they are?
Okay, why did they need Artemis 1 to go there with Zor and Helga with those radiation detectors strapped to them if this was supposed to be done and dusted, as Sci-Man-Dan loves to say, done and dusted in 1969?
well, they just had to repeat what they had done 50 years earlier.
Then the other thing that gets me is with Dave McKeegan. He still hasn't downloaded those files that I sent him with the original contact sheets from every single shot that I took with that film and the comparisons so that he can take a look and compare it all himself to see what happened in the University of Patras's vacuum chamber compared to what we discovered with our vacuum chamber. And do you think he will look at that? No. So they're not interested in finding the truth. Neither did he take a look at the optical printers. He had no clue what an optical printer was, and I don't think Simon Dan does either.
Yeah.
In any case, they're not interested in the truth because they wouldn't be doing what they're doing and they would be downloading everything that we sent them privately, but nothing.
Yeah.
Didn't Dan say that the cameras are much higher quality than they were back then? I thought a Hasselblad camera in the 1960s was the cat's meow. They take some very good pictures.
Yeah.
Even the television cameras, I mean, when they first started doing color television, they're 4K. Just because you couldn't get as clear a picture because you were using rabbit ears doesn't mean that the cameras were not of
Yeah.
the quality.
Film is 4K, period.
Yeah.
And that's from the inception, is it not?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Film is a very good means of recording information. It was developed, been developed for 100 years.
So what's
So,
he talking about the cameras being a much higher quality and they're going to take better pictures now? And the fact of the matter is, go back to Orion in 2014, they had to turn the damn things off so they didn't burn out at 500 miles.
yes. And the
Okay.
ISS still has to turn its computers off when it goes through the South Atlantic anomaly.
Exactly.
And the cameras that they're using are digital cameras. They're going to be using digital cameras this time, not
Oh,
film. So, what do you think is going to happen if those digital cameras do not have radiation shielding inside of them, which is going to make them very large? Have you seen
Yeah.
the ones on the ISS? And
Yes.
they're going to be packing these things around, are they?
done and dusted my ass.
And they're storm shelters to protect from radiation. Oh, come on, guys.
Use diapers they stick to the wall.
Oh,
That's the
that's it.
radiation protection.
Yes.
Storm shelter? There's no room for a storm shelter in there. What are they going to do? Take one guy is going to save his life or her life, and they're going to go into the bathroom and they're going to shut that tiny little door in there and they're going to stay in there, and that's supposed to be the storm shelter.
That's
Is
not
it?
a
Because I haven't seen a storm shelter anywhere else in that craft. It's so small. Where are you going to put it?
Yeah.
sounds like a
But
shit storm to me.
Because it is.
gives new meaning to that phrase, doesn't it?
Yes. And you see, you realize that Sci-Man-Dan, I mean, he's got a nice collection of morons. I mean, they're flat earthers, they're everybody else. And he knows how to attract morons. Guaranteed. That's what his channel's about. Anything he says to them, they believe. He thinks there's all modern technology. The rocket they're using is more than 80 years old in design. The fuel system, the design of it is 45 years old for the
Yeah,
space shuttle, which is slightly modified on the fuel tank to accept the capsule. That's
yeah.
all it is. It's not improved in thrust, it's not improved in anything else. And if you think that's enough power to get you anywhere, that vehicle is designed to take something to low Earth orbit, and that's it. It detaches and it's done. Now there's just you. And that's why they have all of the other stuff is like we need 18 more launches just to add the fuel so we can go to the moon. Where the hell do they think they're going? Low Earth orbit. That's as far as they can get with that vehicle.
And as I said before, why did they need astrorad vests on those astronauts today when they didn't require them back in 1969? Have you seen Buzz Aldrin in the LEM when Neil Armstrong is recording him? Both of those guys do not have any astrorad protection on them, and neither does the ship walls. There's nothing in those walls.
No, a bit of Reynolds wrap, as they say in America.
Yeah, Reynolds wrap.
It,
Yeah,
Stefan Burns channel right now on the solar flares. Right now, today, as we're speaking, the sun has rotated around and some of the largest holes are pointing at the Earth. If they go off with solar flares, X class solar flares, we're looking at a Carrington event. And just a few weeks ago, he was talking about the other events not necessarily pointing at the Earth, but other solar flares that exceeded the one that was the Carrington event by hundreds of times. So if you were in a spacecraft today outside of the Van Allen belts and you got hit by one of those X class flares, I mean, basically, that container that you're in is nothing more than a biological incinerator. And
it's
he
very
says
sad.
radiation's not a problem. It's there
No,
all the time. And this stuff is coming in. When those go off, that first impact coming in, that proton impact that's coming in from the sun, is traveling at near the speed of light. There's nothing you can really do about it.
yes, but Sci-Man-Dan doesn't seem to understand that because apparently he thinks that you can just go into this little radiation shelter and it's going to protect you from those solar storms. Well, how come they're knocking out satellites? Why are Elon Musk's satellites falling out of orbit? Why are these other satellites falling out of orbit when they're hit with these solar flares? And what's that going to do to the people inside of that craft, especially because it's made out of aluminium? And we've seen what happens to aluminium when it is struck with a radioactive particle in a
Yeah,
laboratory. It just expands it. It makes the situation worse. So, what's going to happen when you have all this cosmic radiation that's going to be outside of the Van Allen belts, way outside the belts that these guys, that these astronauts are going to be traveling in? What's going to happen to them when one of these solar flares strikes? There's going to be nowhere to hide. Nowhere.
there's
A
no
solar powered microwave. That's
yeah.
exactly what you've got.
Sci-Man-Dan and his bunch of followers who claim to know what they're talking about have demonstrated that they don't know very much about what we have been discussing. They're not prepared to listen to it. They're not prepared to examine the evidence that we've examined. They're not prepared to look into the problems with vacuum in space on photographic film.
No, and you see what he said about you. He was picking our video apart, the one that you and I did together.
Yeah.
And I had to laugh at the comment section. The comment section is really something to read
Yeah.
because they're not getting to the point. They're saying that, oh, all we're doing is using AI and that AI is the only thing that will talk to us because we're not smart enough. But then they make all these foolish comments in there like this, but they never say, well, why are we wrong?
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Why are we wrong? If you're so clever, prove us wrong. I've been saying that for 30 years. Prove me wrong when I say that no humans have landed on the moon. You can't prove me wrong because it's self-evidently correct. And all this flat earth rubbish that you go on about, why are you conflating flat earth and moon hoax as the same thing? It's as if you want to do it. We don't discuss flat earth because there's no point in doing that. We know the earth is not flat. We know the earth is a globe. We've actually seen pictures of it. So by conflating the two, you're confusing your own audience. We don't talk about flat earth. They have no interest in it whatsoever. You appear to be obsessed by it. And anyway, insults are really not necessarily the best way to discuss a subject like this. Of course, you can insult me. You can call me Statler and Waldorf or whatever it was from the famous old cartoons. Statler and Waldorf, they were quite amusing. And what about the drummer? The guy who was going mad with his drums. He was quite good too. He was as good as many drummers. But to just use insults as some sort of discussion and argument and proof that you are correct is so down market and so insensitively stupid that I just laugh at it. I just point and laugh, point and laugh. Oh, at it again. Come on, let's get some more intelligent insults out there. Not the sort of basic stuff that you come up with. And Sci-Man-Dan, really, you've got to do your research. You've got to look at the evidence that we have looked at and prove us wrong with our conclusions. Maybe we are wrong. Show us that we are wrong. We're not wrong. We're supported by a lot of intelligent people, which rather omits your good self, Mr. Sci-Man-Dan.
It's because what I believe is that he peddles science fiction, so hence Sci-Man-Dan, science fiction Dan.
But he's peddling it to morons. That's his audience. That's why he doesn't need to do the research. That's why he's on their level of understanding, which is nothing.
Let's invite Sci-Man-Dan on with Jera White.
Whoa, 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 love it. Go for it, love it. What a good idea.
Because Jera White would love to have a discussion online here with Sci-Man-Dan. Jera White is an accredited university astrophysicist. He's an accredited university geologist. Jera knows all the math. He can do the math in his head and type it as we're speaking. Yep. He has the figures and he has the facts. So Jera White knows his stuff. Sci-Man-Dan, you say you know mathematics and that you know all these things and that you can explain them. So come on with us and just have a discussion with Jera White. Mono a mono. And then you two can discuss the radiation numbers alone, and he can do the math in his head and speak to you in your own language.
And he'll bring the documents.
And the books.
The NASA documents where he's doing those calculations from. And those numbers are not good, that's for sure.
And if you don't accept our invitation, Mr. Dan, to come on to our channel here, live, with your face visible and your name prominently displayed, we will call you out for being a coward. Because if you're not prepared to discuss it and defend your position, as we are prepared to defend ours, you are a coward who makes a YouTube channel for people who agree with you. Well, we make ours for people who agree with us, and there are plenty of them. So come on, be on here, discuss it. If you want to make information available, this is your chance to do so.
Or we could have him on a live like we did with Dave McKeegan.
Good point. Yep.
Well, the only thing I'm going to ask him is just one thing. Just prove every step of the way from launch to splashdown. Show us that all 2 million parts work perfectly, that all the telemetry that NASA provided is accurate in every way, sense, and form, all the transcripts are accurate, and that it was repeated 6 times fully. And then he can explain to us why it's not being used today.
But you see one fella in the comment section. So you guys really expect NASA to use technology from 1969? And I said to him, I says, hey, whatever works. If it was conceived in 1969 and they can use it today and rebuild it because they have a Saturn 18 sitting inside of the museum that is fully functional, Why don't they take that out? Just like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, why don't they take that out and use it? All they have to do is replace the O-rings, replace whatever has decayed over time. And let's face it, metal of that nature does not decay over time. So it's still going to be usable. All they need to do is replace what does degrade over time. Obviously, this is going to get you people nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Can you imagine an
so
automotive company coming out with the newest, latest, and greatest machinery, and yet you can't drive it anywhere? But it's better. We're not going to use the old stuff. I mean, those old wheels were round. We've got a new design for wheels.
don't laugh. NASA does have a new design for the wheels.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying are you going to quit using the old wheels that actually worked until you've got your new design fully functional? And this is what NASA has claimed to have done. We
Yeah.
just threw it all out. That stuff wasn't good enough, but it worked. The only piece of equipment, if it could do the job, and there isn't another piece of equipment out there that can do the job, then that is the latest, newest, and greatest technology on the market today. And it doesn't matter whether it's 50 years old or not, or 60 years old or whatever. The rockets themselves are nearly 100 years old in technology.
And if
Right?
it works, it works.
Internal combustion engines are over that, and they haven't tossed them out.
When Rudolf Diesel came up with his compression engine, which is still in use today, in fact, the world would not work at all if the diesel engine, as we know it, did not function as efficiently and as reliably as it does. But that's well over 100 years old, the design of that engine. It hasn't changed because it worked.
Well, look at nuclear technology, nuclear power generation. What is it? It's a freaking steam engine.
That's a good point because when NASA's talking about building this nuclear technology for these new rocket ships, what is the nuclear technology based on? It's based on steam
Yeah.
because that's the only thing nuclear power is going to produce. And the other thing is that nuclear power is going to produce heat. Well, you're in space. How are you going to get rid of that heat?
Look at the weight penalty.
I mean, that's why nuclear submarines can operate for months on end, because the energy produced by the engine powers the submarine and it also powers the systems on board, i.e., removal of carbon dioxide, which is allowed to be at least 5,000 parts per million in a nuclear submarine. It just uses the energy generated by a nuclear or by uranium to produce the heat, to produce the energy that powers the equipment. It's very simple.
You know, some of these channels that I've had a look at, it's like they're showing that nuclear power is this magical formula that just sprays protons and electrons out the backside of some engine. And that's
Yeah.
supposed to propel you to billions of kilometers per hour. Again, where is the actual science behind that? See, we don't see that. We just see beautiful graphic displays produced by NASA's Visual Arts Department, but we don't really see any technology that is viable for a spaceship to get to Mars, the moon. I don't care where it's going. You're not getting there with rocket power. It's not going to happen.
Why don't we get Sci-Man-Dan to give us the answer? He knows it. He studies NASA. He believes everything NASA tells him. And that must be the honest truth because NASA says it.
Well, like
Come
I
on.
said in that last video, NASA reminds me of We Say So. You know, the dinosaur that sits there and runs the whole company, that the company is We Say So. And no matter
Yeah.
what we say, that's the truth and that's what goes. Or you don't get your paycheck.
Oh, there's a great one here from Dave McKeegan.
Is Marcus still going on about vacuums? They have vacuum chambers large enough to test the entire command module. Yeah, of course they did. But that does not take it down to Tor 10 to the minus 12, does it, Dave?
That's a good point. That's not a point that he doesn't make. Of course, they got big vacuum chambers. We've seen pictures of it. The Sandusky Center is huge.
How
30
many
foot.
videos have we done on that?
I know. We've shown pictures of it.
Well, then he needs to watch our videos.
No, he's not prepared to do that because he might find out that he's wrong and he can't afford that.
Even Professor Dave said mistakenly that the Sandusky chamber goes down to Tor 10 to the minus 8.
Yeah,
No,
doesn't.
six.
If you can maintain it. As soon as you put something in it, it starts off gassing and they can't even hold it at 6. That's the same thing even when Robert did a little vacuum test. The particles that are off gassing in there is difficult to even maintain toward the -3. As soon as that little bit off gases, it drops way down. And the pressure differential changes dramatically in that small percentage when you're off gassing. And of course, it all showed up in the filters and stuff like that. It turned them black, right? Because it's actually off gassing the rubber products in there. It was off gassing the rubber, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Right?
And can Dave please explain why vacuum levels are measured in a unit called torr, Torr? Please explain why that is the case. Where was that name chosen? Why was it used? Come on, Dave, you're so knowledgeable about these vacuum chambers. You probably know the answer to that, so let's hear it.
Well, the thing is most people don't understand that it's not a percentage of
Percentage.
air in the chamber.
It's the measurement of force of a vacuum against an atmosphere. If you don't have any atmosphere, then you're going into the negative Torr scale.
And that's where their percentage fails. Like it always say, well, you get down and you get rid of all the atmosphere, you can only go to 0. You can't have negative. This is where they don't understand that. The Torr scale is the measurement of force as the amount of air is being pulled out of a system. There are documents on the different scales, the meters that you can run on it. And even at the bottom of it, it says, do not exceed this amount because it'll break the scale.
Why do we always quote things like torr 10 to the -3, torr 10 to the -4? What is that in as a percentage? What is that as a fraction? Forget torr, you can convert it quite easily into a numerical figure.
Yes, and Torr 10 to the -1. Let's just go on a scale like this so people can understand that. Because
Yeah,
I'll compare that to a capacitor. Let's take a zero point 0.1 microfarad capacitor. Now you have Torr 10 to the -1 in the fractions. Now let's take a 0.01 microfarad capacitor. That's Torr 10 to the -2. Now I
yeah,
think people should understand that. When you get a capacitor that is zero point 0.1 microfarads and you get a capacitor that's 0.01 microfarads and you use that in an oscillator circuit, the oscillator ceases to function. Why is that? Because there is such a big difference in capacitance. And the same thing happens with the Torr scale. And by the time you get to a 0.0047 microfarad capacitor, now you're somewhere around Torr 10 to the -5.
yeah. The
Big
opposite
difference.
figure is the minus. You can get plus torr and you can get torr minus.
Just like a 1 microfarad capacitor.
So anybody who understands electronics should understand vacuum or the measurement thereof.
There's a very big difference between a zero point 0.1 microfarad capacitor and a zero point 0.01 microfarad capacitor. Anyone who works with oscillating circuits is going to know that there is a massive difference between those two numbers. And
Yeah.
one works and the other one doesn't work.
Remember all those discussions probably years ago when we were talking about vacuum? And I forget who it was who said, well, it's such a tiny figure, it's hardly relevant. And I thought, well, where's he coming from? What does he understand about mathematics? What does he understand about physics? The difference between torr 10 to the -3 and torr 10 to the -4 is so small, it's almost irrelevant.
Well, I don't
Oh,
know about you, Marcus, but I would rather have $1,000 than $1.
good point. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's only three decimal places. There's nothing there. It's just a small number.
So when Bill Demos was doing his demonstration, he was showing the power or the sheer size of his vacuum chamber that could operate under atmospheric conditions and produce a vacuum. The thing was built of stainless steel about 2 inches thick. Why did he have to have 2 inches thick steel? To resist the atmospheric pressure while he was creating a vacuum. And he could only produce torr 10 to the -6.
It's the same story when I say, let's take a look at how water boils on Earth, and then let's take a look at how it off gases in space. I asked the question to one fella, what would happen to blood If you were to subject that to a vacuum chamber on the Earth to torr 10 to the minus 7, and you were to take that up into space around where the ISS is and put the same blood in the same flask and eject that out an airlock. And
Yeah.
I asked him, what would happen to that blood if you did that? And he said, well, the same thing. There's no difference. I said, then why do they need to make a vacuum chamber on the Earth with metal so thick and glass so thick and 10 to 12 bolts holding that glass on? Why would you need all of those bolts holding the glass on when it's a vacuum inside? This guy just says, well, it should be the same. It's going to outgas, it's going to boil away.
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, how come it doesn't happen out there? You don't see that happening outside. You don't see that happening where you're going to need the ISS, in other words, made out of 2-inch thick stainless steel. And yet it seems to work just fine. So you're saying that the chamber is doing the same thing that the ISS is, and yet the chambers down here have to be 2-inch thick steel. Why is that? I'm still waiting to this day, and it's been 4 years later.
It just demonstrates the lack of understanding that these people have about basic physics. I mean, vacuum is a very simple concept to grasp. It's basically nothing is present. That's what space is. There's nothing there. It's a vacuum. So what is a vacuum?
Sci-Man-Dan can describe how people float in nothing. So the terminology of floating in space in itself is exactly wrong.
Sci-Man-Dan will say you're both falling at the same rate, therefore you're going to float with respect to the Earth.
Let's get rid of the gravitational pull of the Earth. You're going to be just out there, and any gravitational field is going to be the attraction. That's the direction you're going to head. And considering that just you as a person, you can understand that you're going to be drawn to this object, that object, whatever, because of the gravitational pull. How come stuff like Voyager doesn't have that problem? They can just put it on its path and it stays on that path. They have to keep it going up until they put the retirement packages in at NASA for these people that worked on Voyager to retire. They want to give them their full retirement package, but after that, it's done. And then, of course, to keep it going, they just say, well, it now is engaging with aliens, being updated by aliens. It's like absolutely ridiculous. These guys believe it.
Yeah, but let's face it, Elon Musk's robots, one of them just received an alien upgrade, and I can prove it. Watch the new video we just put up.
Only took a few seconds to upgrade the thing, right? Yeah, it's interesting the fact that vacuum has the ability to break a gauge. And yet we can run water pressure to cut stone with it, 50,000 psi, and have a gauge that doesn't break. It can read it. We have scales where trucks drive over, with 88,000 pounds of weight on it, and a physical gauge is reading that, and they don't break. Yet they can't build one, and somebody will say, well, it's just a little tiny gauge. They can build the gauge as big as they freaking want. If they can build it as big as they want to measure a truck going over a scale, then why can't the Sandusky chamber have a big enough scale to read the vacuum? The vacuum, the vacuum, the vacuum.